Hello, friends. We want to know from which cities you listen to us. Like and write in the comments where you are from, and also share what shocking stories happened in your city or even to you. Subscribe because the next story may be about your city or your personal drama. And now a new exciting story. David Crow pulled onto his street in a Portland suburb where neat houses with lawns lined up like soldiers on parade. It was 7 p.m. and his truck was purring tiredly after a long day at the office. He worked as an engineer at a tech firm, designing cooling systems for servers, and had stayed late to finish a report. The house, a two-story affair with white shutters and a basketball hoop over the garage, looked like something out of a postcard. But as he parked, David felt a twinge of unease. Something was wrong, though he couldn't quite put his finger on it. As he entered, he heard the muffled hum of the television coming from the living room. His wife, Emily, a school psychologist, stood at the stove, stirring something in a pot. Her dark hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and her face wore an expression David was seeing more and more often, a mixture of fatigue and detachment. Their children, Sophie, 14, and Lucas, 10, were in their own worlds. Sophie glued to her phone, Lucas battling monsters on the screen. "Hi, I'm home," David said, throwing his keys on the counter. "Hi," Emily said without looking up. "Dinner's in 10 minutes." He nodded, though she couldn't see it, and walked into the living room. Sophie was sitting on the couch, her fingers flying across her phone screen. "Hey, Sophie, how are you?" he asked, sitting down next to her. "Norm," she muttered, without looking up. "School, as usual." "Something interesting," he tried again. "Dad, I'm busy." She rolled her eyes, and David backed off. They were teenagers. What could you expect? Lucas was in his room, headphones in, immersed in the game. David knocked on the door. "Lucas, dinner is soon. Put the controller down, okay?" "Yeah, just a minute," the son muttered without turning around. Dinner was quiet, just the clanking of forks on plates. Emily served chicken pasta, but barely ate, staring at her phone. David saw the screen flash with a notification, and she immediately turned the device over. "Emily, are you okay?" he asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, just work," she answered quickly. "Lots of things to do before the end of the term." "Maybe we should plan a vacation," he suggested. "The kids have been asking for Lake Tahoe for a long time." Emily looked at him as if the question had caught her off guard. "Oh, I don't know, David. I have a lot of consultations right now. I'm not sure I'll find the time." "Well, at least think about it," he said, feeling the conversation slipping away. "It would be great if we all got together." "Of course, I'll think about it," she smiled, but the smile was strained. After dinner, Emily announced she was going for a run. David noticed her grab her phone, which she had previously left at home. He was clearing away the dishes when Sophie went down to get water. "Did Mom leave again?" she asked, opening the refrigerator. "Yes, for a run," David replied. "She runs every night now." Sophie shrugged. "It's weird. She used to hate running." David said nothing, but her words stuck in his head. He remembered how he and Emily had planned for retirement, a house by the sea, travel, grandchildren. Those dreams had seemed so real, but now something had changed. He couldn't say exactly when, but their conversations had become shorter, her gaze colder. That night, he couldn't sleep. Emily came back an hour later, took a shower, and lay down with her back to the wall. David stared at the ceiling until he decided to get up. In the kitchen, he noticed her laptop. Just checking her email, he told himself. But when the screen lit up, he saw a password prompt, a password that hadn't been there before. It was a small thing, but it hit him like a hammer. Why had she said it? In the morning, he was absent-minded. In the office, his colleague, Mark, clapped him on the shoulder. "Hey, David, are you going to play basketball on Saturday? We need your three-pointer." "I don't know, Mark." David shook his head. "There's a lot to do." "Come on, relax for once," Mark insisted. "You look like the world has collapsed." "I'm just tired," David lied, returning to his drawings. Emily wasn't home again. Lucas was sitting doing his homework. Sophie was chatting on the phone in her room. David asked his son. Have you seen your mother? She left, Lucas shrugged. She said she'd be back late. Where did she go? David tried not to show the tension. I don't know. With some Jason, probably. She talked to him on the phone. David froze. Jason. Emily had mentioned him a couple of times, a colleague, a psychologist from another school. Nothing special, just a name, but it sounded different now. He forced a smile. Okay, do your homework. I'll order pizza. Later, while cleaning out the garage, David noticed Emily's car. He opened the passenger door to get a bottle of water, and a piece of paper fell onto the seat. A receipt from a downtown Portland coffee shop dated yesterday, 8:47 p.m. Emily had said she'd been at work until 9. The coffee shop was a half-hour drive from her school. He clenched the receipt in his fist, feeling something inside him clench. David, Emily's voice came from the house. Where are you? In the garage, he shouted, hiding the check in his pocket. She walked in, still in her gym clothes, holding her phone in her hand. What are you doing there? She asked, squinting. Just cleaning, he replied, looking into her eyes. She looked away. Okay, I'm going to take a shower, she said and left. David stood in the silent garage, clutching the receipt. His engineering mind demanded facts. David Crow sat at the kitchen table, staring at the coffee shop receipt he had smoothed out and laid out in front of him. It was Saturday morning, and the house seemed too quiet. Emily had left for a morning meeting with coworkers, Sophie was still asleep, and Lucas was watching cartoons in the living room. The receipt was from a trendy coffee shop in downtown Portland for 2 lattes and a sandwich, $1.28, paid for with Emily's card at 8:47 p.m. on Thursday. She had said she had been in a school assembly until 9. David ran his finger along the edge of the receipt, as if he could squeeze the truth out of it. His engineer's mind demanded facts, and he was determined to get them. He opened his laptop and logged into their joint bank account. Scrolling through the past 2 months of transactions, he noticed a pattern. Small amounts, $10 to $30, spent at cafes, restaurants, and bars downtown. Places Emily never went with him or the kids. There were clothing purchases, $120 at a boutique, $75 at another, though she hadn't shown off any new items. David frowned as he saved the screenshots. Each keystroke felt like a betrayal, but he reminded himself that he was looking for the truth. Dad, why are you so serious? Lucas walked into the kitchen holding a bowl of cereal. Just work, son. David closed his laptop. How are the cartoons? Cool. Lucas plopped down on a chair. Where's Mom? Did she leave again? Yes, she's busy. David forced himself to smile. She'll be back soon. Lucas nodded, but his eyes lingered on his father. She's always somewhere now, he said quietly. Is that normal? David felt a prick in his chest. He patted his son on the head. It's okay, Lucas. Grown-ups are busy sometimes. Go finish your cereal. After Lucas left, David opened the household spending app he and Emily had installed a couple of years ago, but rarely used. He synced it with their cards and saw the same transactions, plus new ones. $45 for a cab last Friday, $1.60 for a spa on Wednesday. Emily had never been a spa person. He jotted down dates and amounts in notes on his phone, feeling like a detective in his own life. It was humiliating, but he wasn't going to stop. He was absent-minded at the office on Monday. His colleague Mark noticed this during lunch in the cafeteria. David, are you okay? Mark asked, taking a bite of his sandwich. You look like you haven't slept in a week. Yeah, it's fine, David picked at his salad. Just family stuff. Oh, I know these things, Mark grinned. If anything, invite me for a beer, you can talk it out. Thank you, David nodded, but he didn't want to share. Not yet. After lunch, he made an appointment with Carol, their company's financial advisor. Her office was on the top floor, overlooking the Willamette River. Carol, a woman in her 50s with short gray hair, smiled warmly. David, good to see you. Want to talk 401k or anything? Both. He sat down, trying to look calm. I just want to understand where we stand financially. Mortgage, pension, all that stuff. Carol nodded, opening her tablet. Okay, let's see. You and Emily have a joint account, right? Mortgage on the house 320,000 left, 401k about 180,000, era 50,000, plus company stock, but it's not liquid yet. David wrote down the numbers, trying not to show the tension. And if, he hesitated, if something goes wrong, how can we protect it? Carol narrowed her eyes, but her voice remained even. Do you mean divorce? She asked bluntly. David swallowed. The word struck him like a blow. Just theoretically, he lied. In Oregon, property is divided fairly, but not always equally, Carol explained. 401 KS and eras acquired during marriage are usually divided. The house, too. But if there are circumstances, an attorney can help minimize losses. For example, proving that one spouse spent the family money unwisely. Got it, David nodded, feeling his palms sweat. Thank you, Carol. If anything happens, contact me, she looked into his eyes. And take care of yourself, okay? When he got home, David noticed that Emily locked her phone even when she went into the other room. She used to leave it on the table. He decided to check her bag while she was taking a shower. Feeling like a thief, he unzipped it and found a business card. Jason Pierce, school psychologist, Portland Public School #12. On the back, written in pen, was the word "See you Friday." David clutched the card, his heart pounding. Friday, tomorrow. David, what are you doing there? Emily walked into the bedroom wrapped in a towel. He quickly put the card back and turned around. I was just looking for a charger, he lied, picking up the cable from the floor. It's on the nightstand, she said, squinting. You're kind of weird. I'm tired, he shrugged and left. He didn't sleep again that night. The card and the check were spinning around in his head like puzzle pieces. He remembered Sophie mentioning Jason. A colleague, just a colleague. But why was Emily lying about her plans? In the morning, he decided to take action. Emily, what are your plans for tomorrow? He asked over breakfast as the children were getting ready for school. Oh, a typical day, she stirred her coffee. Work, then a meeting with colleagues. With Jason, he blurted out. She froze, but quickly smiled. Maybe with him too. We are working on a project for schools. Why do you ask? Just like that, David looked away. I wonder what you're up to. Nothing special, she stood up, putting away the cup. I have to go, I'm late. When she left, Sophie came downstairs, fiddling with the strap of her backpack. Dad, why are you always checking your phone? She asked, looking at his screen where his bank transactions were open. Work, Sophie, he closed the app. Complex project. Yeah, right, she rolled her eyes. You and your mom are kind of weird. It's okay, he said, but her words hurt. The kids noticed. That was the worst part. Emily returned late that evening, around 9. She looked tired, but her cheeks were rosy, as if she had been out for a long walk. David noticed her new lipstick, brighter than usual. Is it a nice day? He asked, sitting on the couch with his laptop. Yes, normal. She threw her bag on the chair. Lots of meetings. I'm going to shower and sleep. After she left, David opened his expense app. New transaction, $32, downtown bar, 7:15 p.m. His jaw clenched. She hadn't mentioned the bar. He decided that tomorrow, Friday, he would find out the truth. He would take the day off and follow her. It was crazy, but he had to know. Dad, are you coming to my game on Saturday? Lucas walked into the living room holding a basketball ball. Of course, son, David smiled, hiding his phone. I won't miss it. Cool, Lucas smiled. Mom promised, but she's always busy. David nodded, feeling his insides tighten. He didn't want the children to suffer. But the truth, whatever it was knocking at the door. David Crow woke up on Friday with a heavy chest. Today, he will find out the truth. He lay in bed, listening to Emily getting ready in the bathroom. Her footsteps, the rustle of her clothes, the sound of the hairdryer, all seemed foreign. Yesterday, he had found Jason's business card with the words, "See you on Friday," written on it, and now those words burned in his head. He pretended to be asleep until Emily left, calling, "I'm going to work, see you tonight." The door slammed, and the house fell silent. David got up, checked that Sophie and Lucas were still asleep, and wrote them a note. Out on business, back for lunch, breakfast in the fridge. He called his assistant at work, telling her he was taking time off for a family emergency. He sounded calm, but inside he was seething. He put on jeans, a dark sweatshirt, and a baseball cap so as not to stand out. He got into his truck and checked his phone. Emily hadn't texted. Usually she'd send a smiley face or a good morning, but not today. He knew she worked at the school until 3, then would probably go downtown. Jason's business card and bank statements pointed to a cafe or bar. David decided to start at her school. He parked across the street from the building where Emily was counseling students. Her car, a silver hatchback, was in the lot. He waited, scrolling through his phone so as not to attract attention. At 2:30, she came out, wearing a black coat and carrying a bag over her shoulder, and got into the car. David started the engine, keeping his distance. Emily headed into downtown Portland. Friday traffic was heavy, but David kept her in sight. She parked at the Bean House, the same one where the receipt was. David pulled up a block away, put on his hood, and walked. He saw her through the storefront window, sitting at a table by the window, across from a man. It was Jason. David recognized him from the photo on the school's website. He was tall, with a short beard and a sweater. They were laughing, their hands close together on the table. David felt the blood rush to his temples. He took out his phone and took a few pictures, trying not to shake. "Shit, Emily," he muttered, backing around the corner. He was shaking, but he forced himself to breathe. He couldn't barge in there, not now. He wanted facts, not scenes. He got back into the truck and waited. An hour later, they got out, hugged each other too long for colleagues, and went their separate ways. David didn't follow. He drove home, anger and pain mingling inside him. The kids were at a neighbor's, as he'd arranged that morning. He sat on the couch, opened his laptop, and logged into their shared cloud account. Emily rarely deleted old files, and he hoped to find something. Scrolling through the folders, he came across a backup of her messages, synced to her phone a year ago. There were chats with Jason. David clicked through them, and his stomach clenched. The messages had started out innocent, discussions of school programs, jokes. But by summer, the tone had changed. "You make me smile," Emily wrote. "I can't wait to see you," Jason responded. The last message, from August, was, "You're my spark, Emily. Friday, 7 p.m. David read it 3 times before closing his laptop. He sat in the dark, clenching his fists. Their wedding, 15 years ago, came flooding back. Emily in a white dress, laughing, their vows. Sophie's birth, then Lucas's. How could she? He wanted to scream, but instead he stood up and poured himself some water. His engineering mind took over. Emotions could wait, action was needed now. On Saturday morning, he called Mark, his colleague. "Mark, you mentioned the lawyer who helped you with your divorce," David said, trying to sound even. "Give me his contact information, please." "Wow, David, are you serious?" Mark paused. "What happened?" "Not on the phone," David snapped. "Just give me the name." "Lisa Grant," Mark replied. "She's in Portland, cool. I'll text her the number." "Thank you," David hung up. He made an appointment with Lisa for Monday. Then he opened his laptop and began copying documents. Mortgage statements, 401k era, their savings account. He felt like a traitor, but he reminded himself that he was protecting his children. If Emily was lying, he wouldn't let her ruin their future. Emily returned home for lunch, cheerful, with bags from the grocery store. "Hey, I got everything for tacos," she said, setting the bags on the table. "The kids are at the neighbor's, right?" "Yeah," David nodded without looking at her. "I'll pick it up soon." "You're kind of quiet," she came closer. "Is everything okay?" "I'm tired," he lied, closing the laptop. "A lot of work." "Well, take a rest," She shrugged and went upstairs. David watched her go, feeling his insides boil. He wanted to shout, to ask about Jason, but he held back. Lisa would tell him what to do. He had to be smarter than that. In the evening, he picked up the children. Sophie was sullen. Lucas was chatting about his game. "Dad, are you coming to my practice tomorrow?" Lucas asked as they ate pizza. "Of course," David smiled. "I'll be there." "And Mom?" Lucas looked at him. "She's busy," David said, feeling a pang of guilt. "But I will." Sophie was silent, staring at her phone. David wanted to ask what was wrong, but he couldn't. Became. Children shouldn't know. Not yet. Before going to bed, Emily announced that she was going to a conference in Seattle for the weekend. "To Seattle?" David asked, sitting on the couch. "When did you decide?" "This week." She didn't look at him. "It's for work in psychology. I'll be back Sunday evening." "Got it," he said, clutching the remote. He knew it was a lie. The check, the messages, Jason, it all added up. But he nodded. "Good luck." She went to bed, and David stayed in the living room. He opened the photos from the cafe. Emily and Jason, their smiles, their hands. He saved them in a separate folder, calling them evidence. Tomorrow he will talk to Lisa. David Crow sat at his kitchen table on Saturday night, staring at the folder of evidence he'd collected. Photos of Emily and Jason at the coffee shop, screenshots of their text messages, bank statements, a check, a business card. It all sat in front of him, neatly laid out like the blueprints on his desk. He'd been up most of the night, replaying the day before in his head, his stalking of Emily, his discovery of her messages. Anger and pain warred inside him, but his engineer's mind demanded order. Today he would talk to her. Today everything would become clear. Emily was in Seattle at her conference. She left that morning, leaving a note that said, "Back tomorrow, love." David knew it was a lie, but he didn't call. He wanted to meet her face to face. The kids were home, Sophie locked in her room listening to music, Lucas playing basketball in the yard. David spent the day with Lucas at his practice, trying to be a normal dad, but he couldn't stop thinking about talking to Emily. He called his neighbor, Marge, and asked her to look after the children for the evening. "Sure, David," Marge said, her voice warm. "Bring them over at 6. We're having pizza and a movie." "Thank you," he replied. "I won't be long, just business." "Are you okay?" she asked, and David heard the concern. "Yes, everything is fine," he lied. "Just need to deal with something." At 6, he took the children to Marge. Lucas chatted about his game. Sophie was silent, her face buried in her phone. "Dad, where are you going?" Lucas asked when they reached the neighbor's house. "Just going out for a couple of hours on business." David patted him on the head. "I'll be back for you." Sophie looked at him, but said nothing. Her gaze was hard, and David felt a pang of guilt. She was noticing something, he was sure of it. When he got home, he prepared the folder of evidence and placed it on the kitchen table. Emily was supposed to be home tomorrow, but he decided to wait for her today. He checked her location on the family app. She was in Portland, not Seattle. His heart pounded. She had lied. Again. He poured himself a coffee and waited. At 9 o'clock, the front door clicked. Emily walked in, throwing her bag on the floor. She looked tired, but her cheeks were pink, as if she had been out for a walk. When she saw David at the table, she froze. "Oh, you're home," she said, adjusting her hair. "I thought you were with the kids." "They're at Marge's," he replied, looking into her eyes. "We need to talk." Emily frowned, but sat down opposite. "What happened?" she asked, crossing her arms. "You're acting weird." David took a deep breath, his voice even, but inside he was shaking. "I know about Jason," he said, opening the folder. "And I know you weren't in Seattle." Emily paled. She looked at the photos, the screenshots, and the receipt. Her lips tightened. "What is this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Were you following me?" "I was looking for the truth," David replied. "You lied. Cafes, bars, conferences. I know everything." Emily stood up, her hands shaking. You were going through my things? She shouted. How dare you? How dare you? David stood up too, his voice growing louder. Texting Emily. You're my spark? Seriously? She turned away, holding her hand to her mouth. David waited, but she remained silent. Say something, he said, trying not to break down. Explain. Emily turned around, her eyes full of tears. Okay, she said quietly. Yes, I met Jason, but it's not what you think. Not that. David almost laughed. I saw you. Photos. Messages. What is this, Emily? Friendship. I. She hesitated. I was unhappy, David. You didn't notice. Unhappy? He stepped closer. We've been together for 15 years. We have children, and you decide to have an affair. It's not a novel, she shook her head. It's, I don't know. He listened to me. He saw me. And I didn't. David clenched his fists. I worked, paid for the house, for school, for everything. For us. For you. You were busy, she said, her voice firmer. You were always on your projects, in the office. I felt invisible. David looked at her, trying to understand. Her words hit him, but he didn't want to accept them. That's no excuse, he said. You betrayed me, us. Emily began to cry, sinking into a chair. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I got confused. I'm sorry, David. Give me a chance. He shook his head. Her tears were real, but he had seen the messages, seen them in the cafe. Trust had shattered like glass. I'm filing for divorce, he said, his voice cold. This is the end. No, Emily jumped up, grabbing his hand. Please, David. For the kids, we can fix this. You ruined it, he pulled away. I can't trust you anymore. He took the folder and went to the stairs. Emily called after him. You can't just leave. This is my home too. David stopped, but did not turn around. We'll talk through lawyers, he said, and went into the bedroom. He closed the door and sat down on the bed. He was shaking. The conversation had been worse than he expected. Her tears, her excuses, it had all been true and false at the same time. He wanted to believe she was sorry, but the messages, the pictures, her lies about Seattle were all there. He opened his phone and texted his brother, Trevor. Can I stay with you for a few weeks? Problems with Emily. Trevor replied a minute later, Sure, come over. What happened? I'll tell you later, David wrote and turned off his phone. He lay down, but he couldn't sleep. The conversation played in his head, every word Emily said cut like a knife. He thought about the children, about how to explain it to them. About the house, about the money, about the future. Everything he had built was falling apart, but he wouldn't give up. Tomorrow he will meet Lisa, the lawyer. Tomorrow he will start defending himself. In the morning, he woke up to the sound of footsteps. Emily was in the kitchen, preparing breakfast. She looked exhausted, with red eyes. David, she said as he walked in, can we talk again? Without shouting. No, he shook his head. I've said everything. Please, her voice trembled. For Sophie and Lucas. Don't use the children, he looked at her. You made the choice. He took the coffee and went to the door. He needed to pick up the kids from Marge. When he opened the door, Sophie was standing on the stairs, her face pale. Dad, she said quietly, I heard everything. Yesterday. What's going on? David froze. His heart sank. He didn't want her to know. Not like this. Sophie, he began, but she interrupted. Is Mom dating someone? Her voice was sharp. Is it true? Go to your room, he said, trying to remain calm. We'll talk later. No, tell me now. She stamped her foot. I'm not a child. Sophie, please. He stepped toward her. This is between me and Mom. I'll sort it out. She looked at him, her eyes shining with tears, and ran upstairs. The door to her room slammed. David stood there, clutching his mug. He wasn't ready for this. Not yet. But he knew he had to be strong. For her. For Lucas. For himself. David Crow pulled into the driveway of his brother Trevor's house in suburban Portland. It was Sunday morning, and his truck was loaded with 2 suitcases and a box of books. After the conversation with Emily the day before, after her tears and confession of an affair with Jason, staying in their house was unbearable. Sophie, who had overheard their argument, locked herself in her room, and Lucas, unsuspecting, asked why his mother was crying. David couldn't stand being there any longer. He called Trevor, who, without asking any questions, said, "Come over, brother." Trevor's house, a single-story building with a shabby lawn and an old motorcycle in the garage, looked like a bachelor's retreat. Trevor, 5 years younger than David, owned a car repair shop and lived as carefree as a 38-year-old could. He walked out onto the porch, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, holding a beer. "Well, fugitive, have you arrived?" Trevor grinned, opening the door. "Come in, make yourself at home." "Thanks for helping me out," David said, dragging his suitcase in. "I need a couple of weeks until things settle down." "At least a couple of years," Trevor clapped him on the shoulder. "What happened? Is Emily nagging you again?" David put the box on the floor and sat down on the couch. The room smelled of coffee and machine oil. "She's not nagging," he said, looking at the floor. "She's cheating on me. I'm filing for divorce." Trevor froze, his smirk disappearing. "Damn, seriously?" He sat down opposite. "With whom? How did you know?" "Coworker Jason." David clenched his fists. "I've been following her. Photos, messages, everything. She confessed yesterday." "Oh shit," Trevor shook his head. "So what now? You kicked her out?" "No," David sighed. "But I can't live there. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. I need to protect the kids, the money, the house." "Right," Trevor nodded. "Don't let her rob you. Want a beer?" "No, it's too early," David shook his head. "I need to keep my head clear." Trevor shrugged and took a sip from the can. "Well, make yourself at home. The guest room is yours. Just don't expect 5-star service." David forced a smile. He moved his things into a small room with a single bed and an old chest of drawers. The window looked out onto the neighbor's fence, but he didn't care. It was a place where he could breathe. In the evening, he went to Merge to pick up the children. Sophie was sitting on the neighbor's couch, staring at her phone. Lucas was watching cartoons. "Dad, where have you been?" Lucas asked when he saw him. "We were waiting for you yesterday." "I had things to do, son." David hugged him. "Let's go home." "Is Mom there?" Lucas looked at him. "No, she's still on a trip," David lied. "But she'll be back soon." Sophie stood up without looking at him and walked to the car. David thanked Marge and walked the children home. The car was quiet, only the radio muttered the weather forecast. He wanted to talk to Sophie, but her silence was like a wall. At home, he ordered pizza, hoping to lighten the mood. Lucas chatted about school, but Sophie ate in silence. "Sophie, are you okay?" David asked when Lucas went to get juice. "No," she looked at him, her eyes red. "You yelled at Mom yesterday. I heard it all. Is she really with someone else?" David swallowed. He didn't want to have this conversation, but he couldn't lie. "This is an adult matter, Sophie," he said quietly. "Your mother and I will sort it out. You mustn't worry." "Don't lie to me." She threw a slice of pizza on her plate. "I'm not stupid. Are you getting a divorce?" "We don't know yet," he said, hating himself for the half-truth. "But I'll always be with you and Lucas, I promise." She stood up and went to her room. David watched her go, his heart sinking. He should have protected her, but instead she was suffering. On Monday, he drove to see Lisa Grant, a lawyer Mark had recommended. Her office was in downtown Portland, in a glass building overlooking the bridges. Lisa, a woman in her mid-40s with short dark hair and a sharp suit, greeted him with a handshake. "Mr. Crow, sit down," she said, gesturing to a chair. "Mark said you were having family problems. Tell me about it." David laid it all out. Emily's betrayal, the photos, the messages, her lies about Seattle. He handed Lisa a folder of evidence. I want a divorce, he said. But I need to protect the kids and our finances. The house, the 401k, everything. Lisa leafed through the documents, her face calm. Okay, she said. In Oregon, divorces are based on the principle of equitable distribution. That means property acquired during the marriage is divided, but not always equally. Your evidence of infidelity won't make much of a difference, but it could help with alimony or custody. Guardianship. David frowned. I don't want the children to live only with her. Then we need to prove you're an active parent, Lisa said. The courts in Oregon put the children's interests first. Record all your time with them, practices, lessons, conversations. Save messages, photos. Already started, David said, showing the notes on his phone. Great, Lisa nodded. As for finances, get all the paperwork together. Mortgage, 401k, era, stocks. If Emily was spending the family money on, well, personal needs that might work in your favor. She spent it, David said. Cafes, bars, clothes. I kept the statements. Okay, Lisa made a note. I suggest hiring a private detective to gather more evidence. It's not necessary, but it can strengthen your case. How much does it cost? He asked. About $2,000 for a couple of weeks, she replied. But it's an investment in your future. David nodded, though the amount made him nervous. He agreed and signed the contract with Lisa. As he left, he felt relieved he had a plan. That evening, he made an appointment with a general practitioner, Dr. Ryan, on the recommendation of a colleague. Ryan's office was cozy, with a sofa and shelves of books. The doctor himself, a man in his 50s with a beard, looked like a university professor. David, what brings you here? Ryan asked, sitting down in the chair. My wife is cheating on me, David said, looking out the window. I'm filing for divorce. And I don't know how to deal with it. I'm angry. I'm afraid for the kids. That's okay, Ryan said. Anger, fear, that's part of the process. Tell me what you feel. David spoke for half an hour, about pain, about betrayal, about Sophie, who heard everything. Ryan listened, nodding occasionally. You're doing the right thing by seeking support, he said. Divorce is like mourning. You've lost not only your wife, but also your vision of the future. Give yourself time. There's no time, said David. We have to fight for the children, for the money. And for yourself, Ryan added. Write down your thoughts. It helps. And come back again. David nodded, feeling that the conversation had helped, if only a little. The next day, he was back playing basketball with Mark and other friends. The gym smelled of sweat and rubber, and it was like a breath of fresh air. Mark tossed him the ball. Well, Crow, will you show us your class? He shouted. Watch and learn, David replied, shooting a three-pointer. After the game, they sat on the bench, sweaty and tired. How are you, brother? Mark asked, turning on the water. I can see you're not in the mood. Divorce, David said quietly. Emily cheated on me. Damn, Mark shook his head. Hang in there. If anything, I've been through this. Call me if you need to talk. Thank you, David nodded. He felt a little less alone. At home, he called the children. Lucas was cheerful, talking about school. Sophie was cold. Dad, where are you? She asked. Mom says you've left. I'm at Uncle Trevor's, he said. Just for a little while. See you soon. You abandoned us, she said, and hung up. David looked at his phone, his throat tight. He texted her, I'll never leave you. I love you. She didn't answer. That evening, he received a letter from Lisa. Emily had hired a lawyer and had been served with a divorce notice. The process had begun. David Crow woke in Trevor's spare room to the sound of his alarm. It was Monday morning, and gray light filtered through the thin curtains. The bed creaked, the mattress was hard, but he was adjusting. It had been a week since he'd left home, since Emily had confessed to having an affair with Jason. The divorce notice that Lisa, his lawyer, had sent Emily meant there was no going back. Today, he was supposed to meet Lisa to discuss strategy, and Carol, his financial advisor, to sort out his assets. David stood up, his chest heavy, but his resolve stronger. Trevor was already in the kitchen, frying eggs. The smell of coffee filled the air. "Good morning, fugitive," said Trevor without turning around. "Would you like some eggs?" "No, just coffee," David replied, pouring himself a mug. "Thanks for having me." "Oh, okay," Trevor shrugged. "But you look like your world has ended. Talk to a lawyer, sort this shit out." "I'm planning to," David said, sitting down at the table. "I'm meeting Lisa today." "Cool," Trevor put down his plate of eggs. "Don't let Emily rip you off. Has she hired a lawyer yet?" "Yeah," David nodded. "Lisa said her name was Sarah Klein. She's tough, but Lisa's no worse." "Okay," Trevor grinned. "Keep me posted. If anything, I know some guys who can. Well, talk to this Jason guy." "No need," David shook his head, but smiled. "I'll figure it out myself." He finished his coffee and drove to Lisa's office. On the way, he called Lucas, who was at Emily's. "Dad, will you come to my game on Saturday?" Lucas asked, his voice cheerful. "Sure, son," David said. "I won't miss it. How are you?" "It's fine," Lucas hesitated. "Mom seems sad. Did you have a fight with her?" "We're just taking care of business," David said, hating himself for being so evasive. "Don't worry, I'm always here for you." "Okay," Lucas sighed. "Love you, Dad." "And I love you," David hung up, feeling a pang in his heart. In Lisa's office, he sat down across from her desk. She leafed through his file of evidence, photos, messages, statements. "Good job, David," Lisa said, adjusting her glasses. "We're in a strong position. Let's discuss the plan. What are your goals?" "Joint custody of the kids," David said firmly, "and protecting my finances. The house, the 401k, the company stock. I don't want Emily taking more than she has to." Lisa nodded, taking notes. "In Oregon, the courts prioritize the children," she said. "Joint custody is possible if you can prove you're an involved father. Are you keeping a journal yet?" "Yes," David showed his phone. "I record everything. Lucas's training, conversations with Sophie, school meetings. I save their messages." "Okay," Lisa said. "That's important. The judge will look at who's more involved in the children's lives. As for finances, Emily is entitled to a portion of the property acquired during the marriage. But we can minimize her share if we can prove that she spent the family money on personal needs." "She spent it," David said. "Cafes, bars, clothes. I have the statements." "Excellent," Lisa smiled. "The private detective I recommended has already started working. He'll check where Emily goes, who she meets. It might help with child support." "What about child support?" David asked. "I don't want to pay her a ton of money." "If we prove her guilt, the court may reduce the amount," Lisa said. "But the main thing is custody. Emily can ask for full custody, claiming that you are unstable because you moved in with your brother." "Unstable?" David frowned. "I left so as not to lose my temper in front of the children." "I understand," Lisa raised her hand. "But her lawyer will play dirty. Be prepared. Continue to be a super dad. Pick up the kids from school, go to their events. Write everything down." "Got it," David said, clutching the pen. "What next?" "I'll file a petition for divorce," Lisa said. "Emily's already been served, so it's in progress. The next step is mediation. If she refuses, it'll go to court." "She'll say no," David said. "She wants the house and half the 401k. Maybe," Lisa shrugged. "But we will be ready. Collect all the financial documents. Mortgage, pension, shares. I want to know everything." "I'm already collecting," David said. "I'm meeting with Carol, the financial advisor, today." "Smart," Lisa closed the folder. "Keep me informed. And David, don't talk to Emily without me. She might use your words against you." "I won't," he said, standing up. "Thank you, Lisa." He left the office feeling like he had a plan, but the thought of mediation with Emily, her lawyer, The potential loss of his children weighed heavily on his shoulders. He drove to his company's office, where Carol was waiting. Carol met him in her office overlooking the river, wearing a formal gray suit, her tablet already open. "David, good to see you," she said. "You said you wanted to discuss assets. What's going on?" "Divorce," David said bluntly. "Emily cheated on me. I want to protect my money." Carol nodded, her face remaining neutral. "I understand," she said. "Let's break it down. You have a mortgage of $320,000, a 401k of $180,000, and an ERA of $50,000. The company's stock is worth about $20,000, but it's not liquid yet. You have savings of $15,000 in a joint account." "Exactly," David nodded. "What can I do to stop Emily from taking half?" "In Oregon, everything you earn during a marriage is divided," Carol said. "But you can put some of your savings into a separate account. Don't touch your 401k or ERA, that's tracked. But cash or bonuses from work, move them. Just don't do it secretly. That might look bad in court." "Got it," David said. "I have a bonus from last quarter, about $5,000. Where's it going?" "Open a separate account," Carol said. "I'll help you set it up. Another tip, if Emily spends family money on, well, personal matters, document it. The court might take it into account." "I'm already documenting it," David said, showing the statements. "Cafes, bars, spas." She didn't skimp. "Okay," Carol made a note. "Also check your shares. If they were registered to you before the marriage, they may not be divided." "They've been together since 2015, David said. "We were married before." "Then they'll be divided," Carol sighed. "But we can try to keep the house. If you buy Emily's share, the court might agree." "That's my plan," David said. "The children need a home." "Then start saving," Carol said. "And keep me posted. Divorces are expensive." "I know," David nodded. "Thank you, Carol." He left her office feeling like he was doing the right thing, but the pressure was on. At work, news was waiting for him. He had been promoted to senior engineer with a $10 a year raise. His boss, Bill, slapped him on the shoulder. "Congratulations, David," Bill said. "You deserve it." "Thank you," David replied, but the joy was dim. The money would help with the lawyer and the house, but not with Sophie, not with Lucas. In the evening, he went to the children. Emily opened the door. Her face was cold. "They're upstairs," she said, not looking at him. "Don't be late." "I'm their father," David said. "I can stay as long as I want." She pressed her lips together, but said nothing. Lucas came down and hugged him. "Dad, are you staying for dinner?" he asked. "Not today, son," David said. "But we'll go to your game on Saturday, okay?" "Cool," Lucas smiled. Sophie went out, but stopped on the stairs. "Hi, Sophie," David said. "How are you?" "Norm," she muttered without looking. "Are you living with Uncle Trevor now?" "Temporarily," he said. "Would you like to come visit?" "No," she shook her head and left. Emily stood to the side, arms crossed. "They miss you," she said quietly. "Will you come back? We could." "No," David interrupted. "You know why." David Crow sat in his car outside Emily's house, gripping the steering wheel. It was Saturday, and he'd just picked up Lucas from basketball practice. The boy was chatting about his game, but David was distracted. It had been a week since Lisa, his lawyer, had informed him that Emily was seeking full custody of the kids and half the house in mediation. The terms had been a punch in the gut. He couldn't lose Sophie and Lucas, and the thought of Emily trying to turn them against him was driving him crazy. Today, he wanted to spend time with the kids to regain some normalcy, but he felt like he was losing touch with Sophie. "Dad, are you listening to me?" Lucas poked him in the shoulder from the passenger seat. "Oh, yes, son," David forced a smile. "Did you say you hit a three-pointer?" "Two." Lucas stuck out his chest proudly. "The coach said I did well." "You're a good boy," David patted him on the head. "Let's go get some pizza and celebrate." "Cool," Lucas fidgeted. Is Sophie coming? I hope so, David said, but his voice was shaking. Sophie had been cold lately, barely speaking. He texted her, "We're going out for pizza. Want to come with us?" She didn't answer. They pulled up to the house. Emily opened the door, her face tense. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back into a ponytail. "Lucas, go get changed," she said, looking at her son. "Dad, can we talk?" "Not now," David shook his head. "I'm here for Sophie. Is she home?" Upstairs, Emily pressed her lips together. "But David, we need to discuss mediation." "Through lawyers," he said firmly. "Lisa knows what to do." Emily wanted to say something, but Lucas returned, already wearing a clean t-shirt. "Dad, I'm ready," he shouted. "Where's Sophie?" "I'll call you now." David walked into the house and up the stairs. He knocked on Sophie's room. "Sophie, it's me. We're going for pizza. Let's go." The door opened. Sophie was standing there with her headphones on. Her eyes were red, as if she had been crying. "I don't want to," she said, crossing her arms. "Leave me alone." "Sophie," David stepped closer. "Please, let's go. We need to talk." "About what?" She took off her headphones. "About how you left, or how you and Mom yell at each other." David swallowed. Her words hit home. "I haven't left you," he said quietly. "I'm here with Trevor to fix things. You and Lucas are the most important thing to me." "Yeah, right," she rolled her eyes. "That's why you left us." "I didn't abandon you." David tried not to raise his voice. "It's complicated, but I'll always be with you." "Mom says you're ruining the family," Sophie said, her voice shaking. "Is that true?" David froze. He knew Emily could play dirty, but using Sophie, that was too much. "Mom is wrong," he said, looking into her eyes. "I'm trying to protect us, all of us." Sophie looked at him, but said nothing. She put on her headphones and closed the door. David stood there, feeling his insides tighten. He walked down to where Lucas was waiting by the door. "Sophie's not coming?" Lucas asked, frowning. "Not today," David forced a smile. "But we'll have some fun, right?" "Yes," Lucas nodded, and they walked to the car. At the pizzeria, Lucas ordered a pepperoni and Coke, chatting about school and friends. David listened, trying to be in the moment, but thoughts of Sophie kept coming back. "Dad, are you coming home?" Lucas asked, munching on pizza. "Mom says you're staying with Uncle Trevor for a long time." "I'll be back," David said, looking at his son. "I just need a little time now, but I'm always with you, okay?" "Got it," Lucas smiled, but his eyes were sad. "I don't want you and Mom to fight." "Me too," David said, squeezing his hand. "We'll figure it out." Returning to Trevor, David felt tired. Trevor was watching football, holding a beer. "How are the kids?" he asked, without looking up from the screen. "Lucas is fine," David said, sitting down on the couch. "Sophie, she's angry. Emily is turning her against me." "Seriously?" Trevor turned. "This is low. What are you going to do?" "Document it," David said. "Lisa says it will help in court, if it goes to court." "It will," Trevor snorted. "Emily won't give in. She wants your house, your money." "I know," David sighed, "but I won't give up the children." The next day, he drove to Lucas's school assembly. Emily was there, sitting in the front row, smiling at the teachers. David sat in the back, writing on his phone. October 11th, Lucas's school assembly attended. After the assembly, he walked up to Lucas, who was chatting with friends. "Good job, son," David said, hugging him. "The teacher praised your project." "Really?" Lucas beamed. "Cool." Emily walked over, her smile strained. "David, you came," she said. "I didn't expect you." "I always come," he said coldly. "These are my children." "Can we talk?" she asked, lowering her voice. "About mediation?" "Call Lisa," he said and left, taking Lucas by the hand. At Trevor's house, he found a letter in the mailbox. It was from Sophie, handwritten. He opened it, his heart pounding. Dad, I want to live with Mom. You left and everything is worse. I'm sorry. David read it 3 times, feeling the world crumble. Sophie had chosen Emily. He sat on the porch, clutching the letter, and dialed Lisa's number. Lisa, it's David, he said, his voice shaking. Sophie wrote that she wants to live with Emily. What does that mean for custody? Calm down, David, Lisa said. This letter has no legal force. She's a teenager. Her opinion will be taken into account, but it's not the decision. Continue to be there, document everything. We'll prove that you're a good father. She hates me, he said, his voice breaking. She's angry, Lisa said. That's okay. Don't give up. We'll get through this. David hung up. In the evening, he went to a basketball game with Mark. The game helped him let off some steam, but after the game, Mark noticed his mood. Hey, what's wrong now? Mark asked, wiping his sweat. You look like a ghost. Sophie, David said, sitting down on the bench. She wants to live with Emily. She thinks I ruined everything. Damn, that's harsh. Mark shook his head. My daughter blamed me too when I got divorced. Give her time, bro. Kids come to their senses. I hope so, David said. But Emily's setting her up. It's killing her. Document it, Mark said. My lawyer said the courts don't like it when one parent manipulates. Does your Lisa know her stuff? Yeah, David nodded. She's cool. Then hold on, Mark clapped him on the shoulder. And call me if you need beer. David returned to Trevor feeling a little better. David Crow sat in the office of Carol, his financial advisor, looking at the stack of printouts she had spread out on her desk. It was Tuesday morning, and outside, gray rain was falling on Portland. It had been a week since Sophie had written the letter declaring her desire to live with Emily, and it still burned inside him. But now he was focused on something else, protecting his assets. Emily, through her lawyer, was asking for half the house, a portion of his 401k, and alimony that could bankrupt him. Lisa, his lawyer, had warned him that dividing up the assets would be complicated, and Carol would help him minimize the losses. Okay, David, Carol began, adjusting her glasses. Let's get this straight. You have a mortgage of $320,000, a 401k of $180,000, an ERA of $50,000, and about $20,000 in company stock. You have $15,000 in savings, but you already put $5,000 into a separate account like I suggested. Exactly, David nodded, leafing through his notes. I want to keep the house for the kids, and I don't want Emily to take half of the pension. Carol nodded, her fingers moving quickly across the tablet. In Oregon, everything acquired during a marriage is divided fairly, she said. The house and 401k would definitely be split, but we could offer to buy Emily out of the house. It would be expensive, but it would save Sophie and Lucas a place to live. How much? David asked, clutching the pen. The house is appraised at 500 grand, Carol said. Minus the mortgage, the net value is 180 grand. Her share is about 90 grand. If the court agrees, you can pay her back with a loan or savings. 90,000, David whistled. That's almost all I have. I know, Carol looked at him, but it's better than losing the house. As for the 401k, Emily can claim half of the growth over the years of marriage. That's about 80 grand. Damn, David shook his head. What about the stocks? They're divisible too, Carol said. You got them in 2015 during the marriage. The court could give her half, about 10 grand. But we could argue that they're illiquid and offer her something else. For example, David asked, a portion of the savings or a smaller portion of the 401k, Carol said. Lisa should push for that. Another tip, keep documenting Emily's spending. If she's spending the family money on personal things, the court might take that into account. I keep all the records, David said, holding up the folder. Cafes, bars, spas. She didn't stop even after I left. Okay, Carol made a note. That might help. And David, start saving. Sell some stuff you don't need. Lawyers, detectives, settlements, they're all expensive. Already, David said, I sold the bike last week, 6,000. Smart, Carol smiled. Keep me posted. We'll get through this. David left her office feeling cornered. He got into his truck. Rain pounded the windshield, and he thought about Sophie. Her letter was still in his bag, a reminder that he was losing not only his money, but his daughter. In the evening, he went to the children. Emily opened the door. Her face was cold. They're in the living room, she said, without inviting him in. Don't be late. I'm their father, David said as he passed. I can be as long as I want. Lucas rushed towards him, hugging him. Dad, you're here, he shouted. Let's go play basketball. Of course, son, David smiled. Where's Sophie? Upstairs, Lucas said, frowning. She's sad again. David stood up and knocked on her room door. Sophie, it's me, he said. Can I come in? I don't want to talk. Her voice was muffled. Go away. Please, David said. I just want to see you. The door opened. Sophie was standing there in a sweatshirt, her hair disheveled. What do you want? She asked, crossing her arms. I wrote that I want to go with my mother. I read it, David said, trying not to break down. But I'm your father. I'm not leaving your life. You're already gone, she said, her eyes shining. You're staying with Uncle Trevor. Mama says you abandoned us. That's not true, David said, his voice shaking. I left to make things right. Mom, she makes mistakes, Sophie. What? Sophie stepped closer. What did she do? David hesitated. He didn't want to talk about the betrayal, didn't want to drag her into it. This is adult stuff, he said. But I love you. And Lucas, I'm fighting for you. Fighting? She snorted. You just left. Leave me alone. She closed the door. David stood there, feeling his heart sink. Downstairs, Lucas was waiting with a ball. They went out into the yard where David had installed a basketball hoop 3 years ago. Lucas threw the ball and David rebounded. Dad, why is Sophie so angry? Lucas asked, missing his target. She's worried, David said, tossing the ball. Sometimes teenagers get angry when things change. Because of you and Mom? Lucas looked at him. David nodded, unable to lie. Yes, he said, but it's not your fault, and it's not Sophie's. Mom and I will sort this out. I don't want you to go, Lucas said, his voice quiet. I'm not going anywhere. David hugged him. I'll always be with you. They played for another half hour. The next day, he met with Dr. Ryan, his therapist. The office was warm, with the scent of lavender from the diffuser. David, how's your week been? Ryan asked, sitting down. Bad, David said, looking at the floor. Sophie wants to live with Emily. She thinks I ruined everything. Emily's setting her up. It hurts, Ryan said. Kids often pick sides to deal with chaos. How does that make you feel? I'm angry, David said. At Emily, at myself, I'm afraid of losing Sophie. And Lucas. It's okay to be angry, Ryan said, but don't let it control you. Stay with the kids, even if Sophie pushes you away. She's testing you. I'm trying, David said. But there's this division of property. Emily wants half of everything. I could lose the house. Finances are stressful, Ryan said. But you do everything you can to protect the future. Write down your feelings. It helps. I'm writing it down, David said, both for the court and for myself. Okay, Ryan smiles. You're stronger than you think. Come back in a week. David walked out feeling slightly relieved. You're a beast today, Mark said after the game, wiping away his sweat. What got you so worked up? Emily, David said, sitting down on the bench. She wants to take the house, the kids, everything. Sounds familiar, Mark nodded. My ex played dirty too. Document everything, brother. Courts love facts. I'm documenting it, David said. Lisa says it will help. Lisa knows her stuff, Mark said. Hang in there, and call me if you need beer. David returned to Trevor, where a letter from Lisa was waiting for him. Emily had refused mediation, demanding a full division of property and custody. The case was going to court. David Crow sat in a chilly mediation room in downtown Portland, gripping a pen so tightly his knuckles were white. It was Friday morning, October 17th, and gray light streamed through the narrow windows. A long table separated him from Emily, who sat across from him next to her attorney, Sarah Klein. Lisa Grant, David's attorney, sat to his right, leafing through paperwork. The mediator, a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a stern face, introduced herself as Mary Wilson. She began with a neutral tone, explaining the rules. Take turns speaking, keep an open mind, focus on the solution. But David knew the emotions would come. Emily had opted out of pretrial mediation, and now was their last chance to negotiate before trial. He didn't trust her to back down. Mary looked at both of them. We're here to compromise, she said. Let's start with custody. Mrs. Crow, what are your suggestions? Sarah Klein, in a dark blue suit, leaned forward. My client is seeking full custody of Sophie and Lucas, she said, her voice sharp. Mr. Crow has left the family home, indicating instability. Emily is the primary caregiver and is better suited for the children. David felt the blood rush to his face. He wanted to object, but Lisa squeezed his hand under the table. Mr. Crow, Mary turned to him. Lisa spoke, her voice calm but firm. My client is asking for joint custody, she said. David is very involved in Sophie and Lucas's lives, picking them up from school, attending practices, school meetings. We have a diary, photographs, and statements from teachers. His moving in with his brother is a temporary solution to avoid conflicts in front of the children. Emily looked at David, her eyes cold. You're gone, she said quietly, but with venom. The children can see it. Sophie herself said she wanted to live with me. David clenched his jaw. Sophie is a teenager, Lisa said, keeping her cool. Her letter reflects temporary feelings, not a legal position. Oregon courts put the best interests of children first. Joint custody provides stability. Mary nodded, taking notes. Okay, she said. Let's move on to the property. Mrs. Crow. We're asking for half the house, Sarah said. Appraised value is $500,000, minus the mortgage, $180,000. Emily's entitled to $90,000. Also, half the 401k, $80,000, and half the company stock, $10,000. Plus child support, since Emily will be the primary caregiver. David barely contained himself. He knew the numbers from Carol, but hearing them out loud was like a blow. Lisa spoke up. We're offering to buy Emily out of the house, she said. David's willing to pay $90,000 to keep the house for the kids. As for the 401k, we're willing to split it, but we'd like to take into account Emily's extravagant spending cafes, bars, spas. We have the statements. Emily jumped up, her voice shaking. Unreasonable spending, she cried. I worked, I deserved it. You were watching me, David. You lied, David said, unable to contain himself. The cafe with Jason, the trips while I was paying the rent. That's enough, Mary raised her hand. No personal attacks. Mr. Crow, speak through your lawyer. Lisa squeezed his shoulder and David fell silent. We also ask for a reduction in child support, Lisa continued. Emily has an income as a school psychologist. Joint custody reduces her needs. Sarah snorted. Emily makes less, she said. David got a promotion. His income is higher. Child support should be substantial. Mary wrote it down, her face remaining neutral. Is there a compromise? She asked. For example, joint custody and division of the house. We agree to joint custody, Lisa said. But David should keep the house, with Emily's share paid. Child support is reasonable, considering her income and expenses. Emily shook her head. I'm not leaving the house, she said. It's my house, too, and I won't take less than half of the 401k. You want everything, David said, his voice low, even after what you did. I did? Emily narrowed her eyes. You left, David. You destroyed the family. That's enough. Mary slapped the table. We've reached an impasse. I recommend a break. We'll be back in an hour. David walked out into the hallway, his hands shaking. Lisa followed him. You're doing well, she said, lowering her voice. But control yourself. She wants to get you out. She's lying, David said. About Sophie, about the house. How can we stop it? Facts, Lisa said. We have evidence, your diaries, extracts, testimony. The detective will give a report soon. We are ready for trial if mediation fails. She'll fail, David said, looking out the window. Emily won't give in. Then we'll win in court. Lisa squeezed his shoulder. Go get some coffee. See you in an hour. David bought coffee at the cafeteria, but didn't drink it, just clutched the glass. After the break, the mediation continued, but the tone became even harsher. Emily refused to compromise, insisting on full custody and half the assets. Lisa repeated David's proposal, but Sarah Klein only shook her head. This is unacceptable, Sarah said. We are ready for trial. Mary sighed. Okay, she said. The mediation is over. I'll tell the court there's no agreement. Get ready for the hearing. David walked out of the room, feeling the air become heavier, Lisa walking beside him. What now? He asked, stopping at the elevator. We're preparing the case, Lisa said. The detective will finish the report next week. Collect more evidence, time with the kids, Emily's spending, and be ready for the trial. It's in a month. A month, David nodded, but his insides sank. I can handle it. I know, Lisa smiled. You're doing everything right. I'll call you tomorrow. David went to see Trevor, but first stopped by Dr. Ryan, his therapist. He hadn't planned it, but after mediation he felt like he was going to crack if he didn't get it out. Ryan met him in his cozy office. David, you look exhausted, Ryan said, sitting down. What happened? Mediation, David said, collapsing onto the couch. Emily wants it all. The kids, the house, the money. She's using Sophie against me. I almost lost it. You held back, Ryan said. That's strength. Tell me how you feel. Anger, David said. She's lying, manipulating. I want to scream, but I can't. The children shouldn't see. Anger is normal, Ryan said. You're protecting your family, but don't let it eat you. Writing your thoughts down helps. What about Sophie and Lucas? Lucas is fine, David said. But Sophie, she hates me. She thinks I ruined everything. She doesn't hate you, Ryan said. She's confused. Keep being there, even if she pushes you away. She'll notice. I'm trying, David sighed. But Emily's setting her up. It's killing her. You can't control Emily, Ryan said. But you can control yourself. You're a good father. Remember that. David Crow threw a basketball at the hoop, and it bounced off the rim with a thud. It was Saturday, October 18th, and he was playing with Mark and some other guys at a Portland gym. Sweat was pouring down his forehead, but the physical exertion didn't drown out his thoughts. Mediation with Emily had fallen through the previous day, and now their divorce was headed to court. She was asking for full custody of Sophie and Lucas, half of the house, and his 401k. The thought of losing his kids was unbearable, and her manipulation of Sophie was a knife in the back. The game was his only outlet, but even that didn't stop the loneliness that was creeping up on him. Hey, Crow, where are you? Mark shouted, intercepting the ball. Come on, get it together. I'm trying, David muttered, wiping away the sweat. He lunged for the hoop, but missed again. After the game, he and Mark sat on the bench, breathing heavily. Mark opened a bottle of water. Well, brother, he said, mediation was crap yesterday, huh? Complete, David answered, looking at the floor. Emily wants everything. Children, a house, money. Lisa says now it's court. We'll have to wait a month. Harsh, Mark shook his head. But Lisa is tough. She'll get you out. My ex played dirty too, but the court sees everything. Document everything. I'm documenting it, David said, taking out his phone. Smart, Mark clapped him on the shoulder. And how are the kids? Is Sophie still angry? Yeah, David sighed. She wrote that she wants to live with Emily. She doesn't answer my messages. Lucas is fine, but he's little. He doesn't understand everything. The kids are the most painful part, Mark said. My daughter didn't talk to me for 2 years after the divorce. But then he came. Give Sophie time, she'll figure it out. I hope so, David said, but his voice was empty. Emily's been setting her up. She says I've ruined the family. That's a dirty move, Mark frowned. Write that down too. The courts don't like it when one parent manipulates. I'm writing it down, David nodded. But sometimes it feels like I'm alone against everyone. Not alone, Mark looked at him. I'm here, Trevor is here. Call me if you need a beer or just to talk. Thanks, David forced a smile. Maybe next week. He returned to Trevor, whose house had become his temporary refuge. Trevor was watching hockey, lounging on the couch with a beer. How's the game? Trevor asked, not looking up from the screen. It's fine, David said, falling into a chair. Mark's supporting me, but I'm still in a hole. Because of Emily? Trevor turned. What is she doing now? Mediation fell through, David said. She wants kids and a house. Sophie's on her side. I don't know how to get through this. Shit, Trevor put down his beer. Look, bro, you're not alone. Let's throw a party, shake you up. I'll invite the guys from the service, it'll be fun. No, Trevor, David shook his head. Not now. I have to deal with the kids. Okay, but think about it, Trevor shrugged. Don't get hung up on it. Life goes on. David nodded, but his brother's words rang hollow. He went to his room and opened his laptop. Lisa had sent him an email. Detective finished his report. Emily met with Jason 3 times this week. Photos and video attached. This will strengthen our position on child support. In the evening, he went to the children. Emily opened the door. Her face was cold. They're in the living room, she said. Don't be late. I'm their father, David said as he passed. I can be as long as I want. Lucas rushed towards him, hugging him. Dad, you're here, he shouted. Let's go to the movies. Of course, son, David smiled. Where's Sophie? Upstairs, Lucas said, frowning. She's sad again. David stood up and knocked on her room door. Sophie, it's me, he said. We're going to the movies with Lucas. Shall we go? I don't want to. Her voice was muffled. Leave me. Please, David said. We need to be together. I miss you. The door opened. Sophie stood there, her eyes red. Do you miss me? She asked, her voice shaking. Then why did you leave? Mom says you abandoned us. That's not true, David said, trying not to lose his temper. I'm here with Trevor to fix things. I love you. Do you love me? She snorted. You destroyed us. Go away. She closed the door. Sophie's not coming, Lucas asked, putting on his sneakers. Not today, David said, squeezing his shoulder. But we'll have fun. They watched a comedy at the cinema, and Lucas's laughter warmed them up a little. The next day, Trevor threw a party after all. His living room was full of guys from the auto repair shop, and the pizza and beer were flowing. David tried to get into the swing of things, but the noise and banter seemed alien. Hey, David, Trevor called, tossing him a beer. Relax, bro, life's not over. I'm trying, David said, opening the can. He drank, but there was no joy. One of the guys, Rick, sat down next to him. Trevor said you were getting a divorce, Rick said. My sister went through that. Hang in there, man. Thanks, David said, but the conversation was a drag. He walked out onto the porch, looking at the stars. Loneliness washed over him like a wave. His friends, the married couples, stopped inviting him to barbecues. He was now that guy who got divorced. On Monday, he signed up for a support group for divorced men he found through Dr. Ryan. The meeting was in a church basement with coffee and folding chairs. The leader, Paul, a single father in his 40s, began by telling the story of his divorce. "I lost my house, but I kept my son," Paul said. "It was worth it. Who wants to share?" David raised his hand, his voice hoarse. "I'm David," he said. "My wife cheated on me. I'm filing for divorce. My daughter, Sophie, thinks I ruined everything. I'm afraid of losing her." The men nodded, their faces tired but understanding. Paul looked at him. "It hurts, David," he said. "But you're here and you're fighting. Keep being a dad. Sophie will notice." After the meeting, Paul approached him. "It was the same for me," he said, handing me the coffee. "My son didn't talk to me for a year, but I came to his games, wrote to him. He came back. Learn to enjoy the little things, coffee, a sunset, playing with your son." "I'm trying," David said, "but it's hard." "I know," Paul smiled. "Come again. We're like family here." David Crow sat on a wooden bench in a downtown Portland courtroom, his heart pounding in his chest. It was Monday morning, November 17th, and gray light spilled through the tall windows, reflecting off the polished floors. Today was the first day of his divorce from Emily. It had been a month since the collapse of mediation, in which Emily had sought full custody of Sophie and Lucas, half the house, and his 401k. Lisa Grant, his lawyer, sat next to him, leafing through a folder of evidence. Journals, transcripts, a photo from a detective. Across the table, Emily sat with Sarah Klein, her lawyer. The judge, an older woman with tired eyes and gray hair, walked into the courtroom. Her name was Elizabeth Thorne, and Lisa said she was stern but fair. David adjusted his tie, which he hadn't worn in years. His palms were clammy despite the chill in the gym. The last few weeks had been hell. Sophie, who had called him in the middle of the night to pick her up, had returned to Emily after a fight with her mother, but remained cold. Lucas had held up, but his questions about why his parents weren't together were heartbreaking. David had documented every step of the way Lucas's practices, school meetings, even their conversations to prove he was a good father. Now it all depended on this Jim, on the words he and Lisa would say. Judge Thorne looked at both sides. "The case is Crow v. Crow," she said, her voice firm. "We're looking at divorce, custody, and division of property. We'll begin with the briefs. Mrs. Klein, it's your turn." Sarah Klein stood up, her dark suit impeccable. "Your Honor," she began, "my client, Emily Crow, is asking for full custody of Sophie and Lucas. She was the primary caregiver until Mr. Crow left the family home, demonstrating instability. Sophie has expressed a desire to live with her mother. We are also asking for half the house $90,000 and half the 401k, about $80,000, plus child support, given Mr. Crow's income." Lisa stood up, her voice even. "Your Honor," she said, "my client, David Crow, is asking for joint custody. He is an active participant in the children's lives, attending practices, school events, staying in touch. We have diaries, photographs, and statements from teachers. His moving in with his brother is a temporary solution to maintain stability. We offer to buy out Emily's share of the house so the children will have a familiar environment, and we agree to a fair split of the 401k, but ask that we take into account Emily's unreasonable spending as documented in the statements." Judge Thorne nodded, taking notes. "Okay," she said. "Let's start with custody. Mrs. Klein, your evidence." Sarah handed over the folder. "We have a letter from Sophie asking to live with her mother," she said. "We also have statements from neighbors confirming that Emily is caring for the children while Mr. Crow is away. His moving out indicates an inability to be a stable parent." David felt his anger rise. Lisa squeezed his hand and stood up. "Your Honor," she said, "Sophie's letter is the emotion of a teenager, not a legal document. David is not absent. He picks Lucas up from practice, attends school meetings, communicates with Sophie despite her temporary estrangement. We have a 2-month diary documenting his involvement. Also testimony from Lucas's teachers and coach." Lisa handed the folder to the judge. "Let's move on to the property. Judge Thorne said. Mrs. Klein, Emily is entitled to half of the house and the 401k, Sarah said. It's marital property. We're also asking for alimony because Emily's making less and Mr. Crow got a raise. Lisa stood up. We're not challenging the 401k, she said. But we do ask that Emily's personal expenses, like cafes, bars, and spas, be taken into account, as documented in her statements. We're offering to buy Emily's share of the house for $90,000 so the kids can stay in a familiar environment. As for child support, Emily has a steady income, and joint custody reduces her needs. The judge leafed through the documents, her face expressionless. Do you have proof of these expenses? She asked. Yes, Your Honor, Lisa said, handing over another folder. Statements for 6 months, including spending on cafes and bars that coincided with Emily's meetings with a third party. Emily jumped up, her voice shaking. It's a lie, she screamed. I was working, meeting with colleagues. David was following me. Mrs. Crow, sit down, the judge said sternly. Speak through your lawyer. Sarah Klein stood up. These statements prove nothing other than normal expenses, she said. Mr. Crow is trying to discredit my client to avoid paying out. We provided the photos and the detective's report, Lisa said. They confirm Emily's meetings with Jason Pierce that match the spending. These are not work meetings. The judge raised her hand. I'll examine the evidence, she said. Now the witness statements. Mrs. Klein. Sarah called a neighbor, Marge, who confirmed that Emily was caring for the children. After the witnesses, the judge called a recess. David walked out into the hallway, his shirt stuck to his back. Lisa followed. You're doing well, she said. We're going well. The judge sees your involvement. Does she see through her lies? David asked, clutching his coffee. Emily lies about everything. We showed you the facts, Lisa said. Your diaries, your transcripts, the detective's report. Her lawyer plays on emotions, but Thorne looks at the evidence. And Sophie? David asked. Her letter. That's not the deciding factor, Lisa said. You've proven you're a father. Hang in there. David nodded, but inside he was seething. He texted Lucas, How are you, son? Thinking of you. Lucas replied, School all good. When will I see you? David smiled. After the break, Sarah Klein called Emily. She spoke quietly, her voice shaking. I've always been with the kids, she said. David's gone, left us. Sophie wants to be with me. I'm asking for custody and a home to give them stability. Lisa whispered, Don't react. Lisa called him, and he stood up, feeling all eyes on him. Mr. Crow, Lisa said, tell us about your role in the children's lives. I'm always with them, David said, his voice firm. Picking up Lucas from practice, helping Sophie with her homework, going to school meetings. I went to stay with my brother so I wouldn't have to fight in front of them. I want joint custody so they know they have a father. Sarah Klein stood up for cross-examination. Mr. Crow, she said, you left the house, leaving the children with Emily. Doesn't that show your instability? No, David said. I left to protect them from conflict. I'm with them every day, even when I live with my brother. But Sophie wants to live with her mother, Sarah said. Are you ignoring her wishes? Sophie's angry, David said, his voice breaking. She's a teenager, but I'm her father, and I'm not leaving. The judge took notes, her face expressionless. Lisa leaned towards him. You were great, she whispered. Now we wait for the final speeches. Ready to talk? Yes, David said, though inside he was shaking. I'll tell you everything. The judge announced the end of the first day. The final speeches are tomorrow, she said. The meeting is adjourned. David walked out of the room, feeling his legs buckle. Lisa squeezed his shoulder. We're in the game, she said. Go home and rest. Tomorrow you'll tell your truth. David Crow stood in front of the mirror in Trevor's bathroom, straightening his tie. It was Tuesday morning, November 18th, and today was the second day of his divorce hearing with Emily. In the courtroom yesterday, Lisa, his lawyer, had presented evidence of his involvement in Sophie and Lucas's lives, as well as records showing Emily's unreasonable spending on her affair with Jason. Emily and her lawyer, Sarah Klein, had argued for full custody and half the assets, arguing that David had abandoned the family. Today would be the day to decide. Final arguments from both sides, and possibly a ruling from the judge. Lisa had warned him that he would have to be sincere, but measured to convince Judge Thorne that he was right. David stared at his reflection, his heart pounding. He had been up all night, going over the words he was going to say. Trevor walked in holding coffee. "You look like you're going to your execution," he said, setting his mug on the sink. "Are you nervous?" "Yeah," David nodded, tightening his tie. "Everything will be decided today. The kids, the house, everything." "You can handle it," Trevor clapped him on the shoulder. "Tell the truth as it is. This judge is not stupid. She will see who is right here." "I hope so," David said, taking his coffee. "Thanks for having me, brother." "Oh, come on," Trevor grinned. "Just don't get used to it, or I'll start charging rent." David forced a smile and drove to court. On the way, he texted Lucas, "Thinking of you, son. See you soon." Lucas wrote back, "Cool, Dad. Love you." Sophie didn't respond, and it still cut like a knife. Her letter about where she wanted to live with Emily was in his bag, a reminder of what he was fighting for. The courtroom was as cold as yesterday. Emily sat across from him in a dark dress, her face pale but not tearful. Sarah Klein leafed through papers. Lisa checked her notes. Judge Elizabeth Thorne walked in, and the room fell silent. "We continue with a case of Crow v. Crow," she said, her voice firm. "Final arguments. Mrs. Klein, begin." Sarah stood up, her tone confident. "Your Honor," she said, "Emily Crow is a caring mother who has always put her children first. Mr. Crow left the home, leaving Sophie and Lucas with her, which proves his instability. Sophie has clearly expressed a desire to live with her mother. Emily is asking for full custody to provide stability for the children, as well as half of the house and a 401k, as is her legal right. Child support is necessary given her lower income. Mr. Crow is attempting to smear her using statements that prove nothing. We ask for justice for Emily and the children." Lisa whispered, "It's our turn." She stood up. "Your Honor," Lisa said, her voice calm but firm. "David Crow is a devoted father who has never abandoned Sophie and Lucas. He picks Lucas up from practice, helps Sophie with her homework, attends school meetings all documented in the diaries and endorsed by teachers and the coach. His moving in with his brother was a temporary measure to avoid conflict in front of the children. We have presented evidence of Emily's unreasonable spending statements, photos, a detective's report that show her meeting with a third party. David is asking for joint custody so the children can have both parents, and he is offering to buy Emily out of the house for $90,000 to keep their home. We are asking for reasonable child support, taking into account Emily's income and spending patterns." Judge Thorne nodded, taking notes. "Mr. Crow," said the judge, "this is your final statement. You may speak." David stood up, his legs shaking, but he took a deep breath. Lisa squeezed his hand, whispering, "Speak from the heart." He looked at the judge, then at Emily, and began. "Your Honor," he said, his voice hoarse but firm, "I've been married to Emily for 15 years. We built a family, a home, and dreams. I thought we'd be together forever, but she cheated on me. I found the messages, the photos, and the evidence. It broke my heart, but I didn't leave our kids. Sophie and Lucas are my life. I pick Lucas up from practice, I go to his games, I help Sophie with her homework even when she's angry. I moved in with my brother so they wouldn't have to see us fight to protect them. Emily says I broke up our family, but she was the one lying, spending our money on another man. I'm not perfect. I worked hard. Maybe I didn't always listen to her, but I never betrayed her. I'm asking for joint custody so Sophie and Lucas know they have a father. I want to keep our house for them, pay Emily her share. I want them to grow up knowing that I fought for them." His voice wavered, but he continued. Sophie wrote that she wants to live with Emily, he said. It hurts, but she's a teenager, she's angry. I don't blame her. I blame Emily for turning her against me. I won't give up. I'll be with her, with Lucas, every day. Please give me a chance to be their father. He paused, feeling the room go quiet. Judge Thorne watched him, her eyes attentive, taking notes. Emily was crying, but David wasn't looking at her. He sat down, writing down. My speech talked about the kids, the house, Emily's betrayal. Lisa whispered, "You were great." The judge turned to Emily. "Mrs. Crow, your speech," she said. Emily stood up, her hands shaking. She wiped away her tears. "Your Honor," she said, her voice quiet. "I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But I love Sophie and Lucas. I was always there for them, cooking for them, driving them to school, listening to them. David left us. Sophie wants to be with me because I understand her. I don't want to ruin their lives. I'm asking for custody and a home to give them stability. David blames me, but he hasn't seen me, he hasn't heard me. I just want the kids to be happy." She sat up, her tears seeming genuine, but David knew it was an act. He wrote down, "Emily cries, lies, says I didn't see her." Sarah Klein looked confused, as if Emily's speech was not what they had planned. Judge Thorne closed the file. "I will study the evidence and testimony," she said. "The decision is in a week. The meeting is adjourned." David walked out of the room, his legs weak. Lisa walked beside him. "You were real," she said. "Your speech was on target. Thorne saw your sincerity." She saw her cry, David said, clutching his coffee in the hallway. "She's playing the victim." "Tears won't outweigh the facts," Lisa said. "We have diaries, extracts, and a detective report. You've shown who you are. Now we wait." "A week," David nodded, but his insides were clenching. "I can handle it." "I know," Lisa smiled. "I'll call as soon as there's news." David Crow was sitting in Trevor's living room, clutching his phone, when a letter arrived from Lisa Grant, his lawyer. It was Tuesday morning, November 25th, a week after the court hearing where he had laid it all out in his speech. Emily's infidelity, his love for Sophie and Lucas, his desire to keep their home. Judge Elizabeth Thorne had promised a decision within a week, and now that moment had arrived. David felt his heart pound as he opened the letter. "David, the judge has made a decision. Call me." He dialed Lisa's number, his fingers shaking. "Lisa, it's me," he said when she answered. "What's the solution?" "Good news." Lisa's voice was calm but cheerful. "Joint custody of Sophie and Lucas, 50-50ths. You keep the house, but you have to pay Emily her share, $90,000, within a year. The 401k is split evenly, about $80,000 to her. You keep the company stock, since it's a liquid. Child support is $800 a month, which is reasonable considering her income. We win, David." David exhaled, his shoulders slumping. The relief was enormous, but not complete. "Joint custody," he repeated. "That's the main thing. Thank you, Lisa. You saved me." "You saved yourself," Lisa said. "Your speech, the journals, the evidence it worked. The judge saw you were the father. Emily signed the agreement, but she's not thrilled. Be prepared for tension." "I'm ready," David said, though inside he was still shaking. "What next?" "You'll get the official papers tomorrow," Lisa said. "Start planning your house payment. And stay with the kids. This is your life now." "Got it," David said. "Thanks again." He hung up and wrote down on his phone. November 25th, court order. Joint custody, my house for $90,000, 401k split, my stock, alimony 800. He sat down on the couch, feeling the tension release. He had saved the kids, the house, himself. But the victory was not a triumph, too much pain remained. Trevor walked in holding coffee. "Well, hero of the court?" he asked, sitting down. "Your face looks like you've won, but you're not sure." "I won," David said, looking at his brother. "Joint custody. The house is mine if I pay Emily $90,000. We split the 401k, but I got the stock. Damn, that's a win. Trevor clapped him on the shoulder. Celebrate? Beer? Pizza? No, David shook his head. I want to go to the kids. I need to tell them. Right, Trevor nodded. But beer tonight anyway. You deserve it. David smiled and drove to Emily's house. He texted Lucas, "Son, I'm on my way. We need to talk." Lucas replied, "Cool, Dad. Waiting." Sophie didn't answer, but he hoped to see her. On the way, he called Dr. Ryan, his primary care physician, to make an appointment. He needed to process the victory. "David, how are you?" Ryan asked, his voice warm. "The court decided," David said. "Joint custody, my house. But I don't know what I feel. Relief, but not joy." "That's okay," Ryan said. "You won the battle, but the war left scars. Come back tomorrow, and we'll sort this out." "Okay," David said. "Thank you." He pulled up to the house. Emily opened the door, her face cold, her eyes red, as if she had been crying. She was holding a folder of documents, apparently a copy of the decision. "They're in the living room," she said without looking at him. "Don't be late." "I'm their father," David said as he passed. "It's official, 50-50 it's." Emily pressed her lips together but said nothing. Lucas rushed towards him, hugging him. "Dad, you came," he shouted. "What's this conversation?" "Where is Sophie?" David asked, hugging his son. "Upstairs," Lucas said, frowning. "She's wearing headphones again." David stood up and knocked on her room door. "Sophie, it's me," he said. "Can we talk?" "Why?" Her voice was muffled. "I'm busy." "It's important," he said. "Please come out." The door opened. Sophie stood there, her eyes tired. "What?" she asked, crossing her arms. "Mom said the trial is over." "Yes," said David. "Let's go down and I'll tell you and Lucas." They went down to the living room. Emily stood to the side, watching. David sat on the sofa, Lucas next to him, Sophie on the chair, further away. "Guys," David began, looking at them. "The court decided that you will live with me and your mother equally. Half the time with me, half with her. The house will remain ours. I will be there with you. Everything will be fine." Lucas smiled. "Cool, Dad," he said. "We'll be with you. In our house?" "Yeah," David patted his head. "Just like before, only better." Sophie was silent, looking at the floor. "Sophie," David said, "I know you're angry, but I fought for you. I love you." "You won," she said quietly, "but that doesn't mean everything's okay." "I know," David said, "but I'll stay here until you're ready to talk." She nodded but didn't look at him. Emily walked over. "Are you happy?" she asked, her voice icy. "Did you take everything?" "I took the kids," David said, standing up, "and a home for them. You started this." She turned away, her gaze full of bitterness. David walked away, taking Lucas's hand. "Dad, can I come over tomorrow?" Lucas asked as they walked outside. "Of course, son," David said. "Pack your things, let's start a new life." He dropped Lucas off and went to Trevor's. That evening, he called Mark, his basketball friend. "Mark, it's me," David said. "The trial's over. Joint custody, the house is mine." "Brother, it's a victory," Mark shouted. "Lisa is a genius. Let's celebrate." "Not yet," David said. "We need to get things sorted out with the kids. But thanks for being there." "Always," Mark said. "Call me if you need a beer." David hung up and wrote, called Mark, told him about the decision. He opened his laptop and added in his notes for a future blog. "The court gave me a chance, but the real work is to win back Sophie's trust." He felt it might help other men, but for now he left it as a draft. The next day, he began packing to return to the house. Trevor helped load the suitcases into the pickup truck. "So, are we going home?" Trevor asked, tightening the rope around the boxes. "Yeah," David said. "Thanks, brother. I couldn't have done it without you." "Okay," Trevor grinned. "Just don't call me when Emily starts again." David laughed for the first time in weeks. He drove to the house that was now his, but 90 grand in debt. Everything inside was the same, a basketball hoop in the yard, pictures on the walls. But without Emily, the house felt empty. He wrote, November 26th, returned to the house, began to settle in. That evening, he received a text from Sophie. Dad, I need help with a project for school. Can you come tomorrow? His heart leapt. He wrote back, Sure, come. I'm here. She wrote back, Okay. It was a small step, but a huge one for him. He wrote, Sophie asks for help with a project, first contact in weeks. He called Carol, a financial advisor, to discuss paying off the house. David, congratulations, Carol said. 90,000 is doable, but you have to plan. You can take out a mortgage loan or use bonuses from work. I plan to, David said. The promotion will help. And I sold the bike. That's smart, Carol said. We'll make a plan next week. Hang in there. Thank you, David said. David Crow stood in the kitchen of his suburban Portland home, stirring pancake batter. It was Saturday morning, December 6th, and the smell of coffee filled the air. It had been nearly 2 weeks since Judge Thorne had awarded him joint custody of Sophie and Lucas, leaving him with the house on the condition that he pay Emily $90,000. The 401k was split in half, but he kept the company stock, and child support was set at a reasonable $800 a month. David returned to the house that was now his, but it felt different without Emily quieter, but with the promise of a fresh start. Tonight, Lucas and Sophie were going to spend the weekend with him, and he wanted to make it special. Lucas ran into the kitchen, his sneakers squeaking on the floor. Dad, pancakes? He asked, peering into the bowl. With chocolate. Yeah, David smiled, adding chocolate chips. Just the way you like it. Where's Sophie? Still sleeping, Lucas shrugged, sitting down at the table. She sleeps all the time now. Teenagers, David said, flipping a pancake. Give her time, ready to help with the serving. Of course, Lucas grabbed the plates and started setting them out, humming a song from school. He knocked on Sophie's door. Sophie, breakfast is ready, he said. Pancakes, your favorite. I'm coming, her voice was sleepy. 10 minutes later, she came down, wearing a sweatshirt and with her hair in a bun. She sat down without looking at him and took a pancake. How are you? David asked, pouring her juice. Did you turn in the project? Yeah, she muttered. A 4? Thanks for helping. You're welcome, David said, feeling the warmth of her words. If you need anything else, just call. She nodded but remained silent, her head buried in her phone. Lucas chatted about his basketball game, and David tried to engage Sophie. Sophie, should we go to Lucas's game today? He asked. It'll be fun. Maybe, she said without looking up. I'll see. When he returned, he found Sophie on the couch with a laptop. Hey, he said, sitting down next to her. Everything okay? Yes, she looked at him. Dad, can we talk? Sure. David put the phone down, his heart jumping. About what? About Mom, she said quietly. She's weird, sad all the time. She says you kicked her out. David clenched his jaw, but tried to speak calmly. I didn't kick her out, he said. My mother and I couldn't be together. But it's not your fault, and it's not mine. She made a choice, and I made mine to protect you. She says you took the house, Sophie said, her eyes wet. Is that true? The court decided that we should keep the house, David said, so that you and Lucas could have a place to grow up. I'm paying my mother her share, that's fair. Sophie nodded, but looked confused. I don't know who to believe, she said. It's all so confusing. I understand, David said, squeezing her hand. But I'll always be honest with you. Ask me anything, I'll answer. Okay, she wiped her eyes. Can I stay with you until Monday? Of course, David said, feeling warmth spreading in his chest. Your room is always yours. He wrote down. Talking to Sophie, she opened up, wants to stay until Monday. It was progress, fragile but real. That evening, he and the kids watched a movie, and Lucas fell asleep on the couch, and Sophie even laughed at the jokes. On Monday, he returned to work, where a new project awaited him. A cooling system for a large client's servers. His boss, Bill, called him into his office. "David, are you in?" Bill asked, handing over the folder. "This is a big contract, and I want you to be the host." "In," David said, taking the documents. "Thank you for your trust." "You deserve it," Bill said. "You proved yourself after the promotion, but don't burn out, okay?" "I won't burn out," David said, though the fatigue was still pressing. The raise had added 10 grand to his salary, which would help with Emily's paycheck, but he knew he'd have to economize. After work, he met with Carol, a financial advisor, to discuss a repayment plan. "So, 90,000, Carol said, opening the tablet. "You have a year. A bonus from work, savings, plus you can take out a loan under a mortgage. The rates are now about 4%, it's real." "Okay," David said. "I sold the bike, that's 6,000. Plus the quarterly bonus is 5,000. How much can we borrow?" "About 70,000, said Carol. "With your salary and promotion, you'll pay it off in 5 years. I'll prepare the paperwork." "Thanks," David said, writing down, "December 8th, plan with Carol, loan for 70,000. He felt the pressure, but also the control. He could handle it. That evening, he went to a basketball game with Mark. The game was tough, and David played hard to relieve the stress. "You're a beast today," Mark said after the game, wiping away his sweat. "Did the trial get you worked up?" "Not a trial," David said, sitting down. "Life. My children are with me, my home is mine. But Sophie is still far away." "She'll come," Mark said. "My daughter was angry too, but time heals. You're doing everything right." "I hope so," David said. "And you know, I started writing a blog. For guys like us. About divorce, kids, all that stuff." "Cool," Mark nodded. "If you publish it, give me a link. Maybe I'll read it too." David returned home and opened his laptop. He uploaded his notes to a blog, calling it "Starting Over, Life After Divorce." The first entry was short. "I lost my wife, but I kept my kids and my home. This isn't the end, it's the beginning." He hit publish and wrote, "Started the blog, first entry." An hour later, a comment came in. "Thanks, man, I'm in the same shit. Keep going." David smiled, feeling like he was helping more than just himself. The next day, he met with Dr. Ryan, his therapist. The office was warm and smelled of lavender. "David, you look better," Ryan said, sitting down. "What's new?" "The kids are with me," David said. "Sophie's opening up, asking for help with a project, staying the weekend. I started a blog, writing about divorce. I feel in control." "That's progress," Ryan said. "You're building a new life. What about Sophie?" "She's confused," David said. "Emily says I kicked her out, but Sophie's starting to believe me. Slowly." "You give her space and love," Ryan said. "It works. What about you? How do you feel?" "Hope," David said, "and fear. I'm afraid it'll all fall apart, but I'm coping." "You're stronger than you think," Ryan said. "Keep writing, be with the kids. You're on your way." "Dad, want to play?" Lucas asked, tossing the ball. "Sure," David said, and they went out into the yard. Lucas laughed, missing his shot. Sophie was in her room, but the door was open one more small step. That evening, he received a letter from a stranger. "I read your blog. My divorce killed me, but you give me hope." "How to cope with children?" David replied. "Be there, even if they are angry. Write, call for help." David Crow stood on the porch of his home in suburban Portland, looking up at the stars that peppered the sky. It was Saturday night, December 5th, and the cool air smelled of pine and smoke from a neighbor's fireplace. It had been a year since Judge Thorne had awarded him joint custody of Sophie and Lucas, leaving him with the house on the condition that he pay Emily $90,000. He had felt a mixture of relief and emptiness then, But now, standing here, he felt at peace. Not perfect, not unscarred, but at peace. His life had changed. His children were close. His blog had become a business that helped others, and he had learned to live again. Inside the house, Lucas, now 11, played a video game, his laughter coming through the open door. Sophie, 15, sat on the couch with her laptop, studying for a school project. A year ago, she had barely spoken to him, blaming him for the breakdown of her family, but time and his persistence calls, games, conversations had taken their toll. She was no longer the carefree girl she once was, but she trusted him now, shared her fears, even jokes. He entered the living room carrying mugs of cocoa. "Hey, guys," he said, setting the mugs on the table. "Break. Cocoa with marshmallows." "Cool, Dad." Lucas put down the controller and grabbed the mug. "You're the best. Thank you," Sophie smiled, closing her laptop. "But I still won't finish this project by Monday." "Will you let me see?" David asked, sitting down next to him. "Maybe I can help." "Maybe," she said, but her tone was softer than it had been a year ago. "It's about ecology. It's boring, but it's necessary." "Ecology is cool," David said. "I remember you made a model of a forest in 5th grade. You won a competition." "Dad, that was 100 years ago." Sophie rolled her eyes, but smiled. "Okay, I'll show you the draft." Lucas plopped down next to him, spilling his cocoa. "Dad, can we play basketball tomorrow?" he asked, wiping the stain. "Are you going to play?" "Sure," David said, "but only if you promise not to score all the points." "No chance," Lucas laughed and Sophie snorted. "You are both such children," she said, but her eyes were shining. He felt like the family was coming alive, albeit in a new way. Joint custody was working. The kids spent half their time with him, half their time with Emily, who had moved to an apartment in another part of Portland. Lucas had heard that she had broken up with Jason, but David hadn't asked. Emily was part of their past, and he held no grudges, just a little sadness about what might have been. Things were looking up at work. A promotion to senior engineer brought more responsibility, but also a 10K raise, which helped with Emily's payment. Carol, his financial advisor, came up with a plan. A 70K loan at 4% and bonuses from work paid off the house debt in 11 months. He paid Emily 90K in October, and the house was now his. His blog, Starting Over, Life After Divorce, became an overnight success. Starting as a personal journal, he posted about divorce, custody, loneliness, and recovery. By December, the blog had 500 subscribers, and David was receiving emails from men all over the country. "You saved my life," wrote one. "How do I talk to my kids without them hating me?" asked another. David responded to each, spending his evenings writing. He wrote, "Blog growing, 500 subscribers, answered 10 emails." Yesterday, he recorded the first episode of a podcast he planned to launch in January. Sitting in his room with a cheap microphone, he talked about surviving divorce. "Don't give up. Your kids can tell when you're fighting for them." He wrote, "Podcast recorded episode 1. It was scary, but also inspiring his voice could help others." That evening, he called Mark, a basketball friend, to share. "Mark, it's me," David said, sitting on the porch. "I recorded a podcast. The blog is growing. The guys are writing." "Really?" Mark laughed. "You're a celebrity now. Send me the link. I'll listen." "Soon," David said. "How are you? The kids?" "I'm fine," Mark said. "My daughter is finally talking to me. You were right, time heals." "Good to hear," David said. "Call me to play basketball. We need to warm up." "Tomorrow," Mark said. "And hang in there, brother. You're doing a great job." David hung up and wrote down, "Talk to Mark. He runs the podcast." He felt like his friends Mark, Trevor, Paul from the support group had become his rock. The couples he'd been friends with a year ago had drifted away, but these guys stayed. They understood. He walked into the house where Sophie was still working on the project. "Dad," she said, not looking up from the screen, "I was thinking, can I invite my friend Claire over tomorrow? She'll help with the project. Sure, David said. Want me to order some pizza? Cool, Sophie smiled. You're okay, Dad. You too, he said, writing down. Sophie calls her friend, calling me normal. That was more than he expected. Lucas fell asleep on the couch, and David pulled the blanket over him. He wrote, Lucas asleep, cozy evening. These moments were his victories, more important than any trial. He sat down at his laptop and opened his blog. A new letter was waiting. David, your post about the kids gave me strength. How do you stay sane when your daughter won't talk? He replied. Write to her, be there for her even if she's silent. She'll notice. He wrote, answered the letter, helped my dad. The next day, he took Lucas to basketball while Sophie and Claire worked on a project. The game was fun, and Lucas scored 3 points. Dad, it's okay, Sophie said as Claire left. Thanks for the pizza. You're welcome, David said, hugging her. She didn't pull away, and he wrote down. Sophie hugged progress. On Monday, he met with Dr. Ryan. The office was warm as always. David, you're glowing, Ryan said, sitting down. What's new? The kids are here, David said. Sophie is opening up. Lucas is happy. The blog is growing, so I recorded a podcast. I'm alive. That's a huge step, Ryan said. You were in a hole a year ago. What helped? Kids, David said. And writing. Blogging, writing it gives meaning. I help others, and it heals me. You found a purpose, Ryan said. What about you? Your personal life? I went on a date, David said with a shrug. A colleague, Linda. Nice to meet you, but I'm not ready. The kids are a priority. That's your pace, Ryan said. You're building a life. I'm proud of you. Dad, shall we play? He asked. Come on, David said, and they went out into the yard. Sophie looked out the window, smiling. Before going to bed, he opened his laptop and started a new article. How to start again. Divorce is not the end, he wrote. It's a chance to be better for your kids, for yourself. He wrote, new article about the beginning. A year ago, he had been broken, but now, standing on the porch, looking at the stars, he knew he had done it. For Sophie, for Lucas, for himself. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.